Okay, good morning, everyone. I am Gloria Rogers,
Morning.
Second Vice President of the National ECW Board. Welcome to our next virtual series called Balancing Act, Mastering the Art of ECW Budgeting. We are happy to see you here today. If you can rename yourself to let us know what diocese you're coming from, that would be most appreciative. Also, silence your phone or mute yourself, or you will be muted, so we can keep out any distraction. Please note that this workshop is being recorded, and we're going to get started. And our speaker here is Jane Schenck, President
Schenck.
of ECW Board from Chicago. All right,
Good morning,
Jane.
all. I'm very pleased to be able to do this for National ECW and for all my sister organizations out there. I am currently the president of the ECW Board of the Diocese of Chicago, and I'm a finance and accounting professional by trade. I've spent 32 years with Abbott Laboratories doing budgeting and finance work for the last many years for the R&D organization. I've also been treasurer of the diocesan board of ECW and am my parish treasurer currently. So budgeting is my bread and butter. I live it, breathe it, especially this time of year. I'm going to go through this not terribly fast, but if you have questions, just alert Gloria, who will feed me any questions, and we'll break as we need to for any clarifications.
Mhm.
Are you ready for me to share my screen?
Yes, I will be looking at the chat. You can also write your questions into the chat. I will look at it or raise your hand and we will recognize you. All right, we will get started. You may share your screen.
All right. As I say, that's me, and I am going to be going through basically some. National ECW has invited me to speak about budgeting, and I'll share some summary thoughts on the following slides. Uh, I will, throughout the presentation, entertain questions, as I said. So let's just get going. Assuming I can get my screen to
Okay.
go.
Okay.
Come on.
Your editing is at the bottom.
Yeah, something's not working right here. Well, darn it.
Take your time.
We're going to unshare and try sharing again just to
Okay.
see if I can get it to go.
Okay. And we did practice the other day and it worked well.
We did. It worked. I'm not sure why we're having a problem with this. Well, uh, can't imagine what I have done to what I have set wrong to cause this to behave this way. Let me try one more time and see if starting it over will. There we go. All right.
Okay.
So, what is a budget? Uh, Primarily, this is a statement of our values and intentions. It's a strategic document, and especially for a mission-driven organization or ministry-driven organization, it's how you plan to spend your cash, whatever it is, and how you want to spend your time. As such, it should be an exercise that you go through with all your stakeholders. In my case, it was always a workshop with my entire board so that they could participate and weigh in on what they thought we needed to be doing. At its most basic level, and what you mostly think of is that it's a tool for estimating the cost and then a way to measure actual financial activities against expectations and intentions. So factors to consider when you're starting a budget is how are you organized? Is your group a parish chapter or a diocesan chapter? How are your finances managed? Do you manage your own finances, or is there a parish or diocese of which you are part that's handling all the financial management for you and all your bookkeeping? What are your sources of income? Could be dues from individuals or parishes, income from investments generated or controlled by your organizations, event registration fees, fundraising or donations. If your parish chapter charges dues, how do you set the amount per person? If you're a diocesan level organization, do you mandate contributions from your parishes or do you receive voluntary contributions? If you have investments, how much is the income you expect to receive from them, interest and or dividends? What parishes or projects that you plan to do, ministries or projects that you plan to do will involve money? All of this is most important. First, so you start your planning assumptions, or you start with assumptions. You estimate your income from all the sources we described before. You decide which activities your group will plan for and fund. Is it going to be philanthropy or projects, events, administrative costs? You'll start at the lowest level, an individual event or category of activity, and you'll estimate the costs for that activity. History is the best basis. Otherwise, do research, especially if there's a new activity. If you have administrative costs, do your members or officers have any expenses that they incur for the group? Do you use administrative tools, an accounting system of some sort? And if so, is it free? I am also the treasurer for the ECW Province 5 organization, and I use Wave, which is a Google product that provides very basic accounting system for free. TechSoup offers QuickBooks Online as donated software for qualifying organizations, and we have that for our diocesan organization at this point. If you have questions about TechSoup, let me know, but it's basically just TechSoup, as it sounds, TECHSOUP. And they are great for that. Otherwise, QuickBooks Online will cost you north of $1,000 a year, which to me, for this kind of organization, is robbery. Do you have a Zoom account or other support for virtual meetings that you pay for? Is there a website or communications tool subscription? Mostly websites will require some sort of web hosting. We use Ionos One-on-One for ours. Communications tools could be Constant Contact or MailChimp. They have free versions. They also have versions that you pay for if you want somewhat better tools to use. Do you have an outsider to do an audit of your financial records annually as required by the church? If your parish or diocesan organization provides these tools and services, do they expect your group to cover some of the costs, especially for the paid versions of these? If you're going to have an event, the first thing you need to decide is who's the audience, who will attend, how many, including workers, hired speakers, or support people. Sort of estimate that based on history, if you've got it, or based on aspiration if you haven't got any history in this particular event. How long will the event be? A couple of hours, a day or more if you're going to do a retreat? Is it going to be virtual, in person, or a hybrid? If in person, choose the venue and find out how much it will cost. Will there be speakers or other support people that you will have to pay? If you invite clergy to preside at an event Eucharist, you will need to pay their supply priest rates as defined by your diocese. Deacons count as clergy, by the way. We have a deacon as our chaplain, so we pay her when she participates in one of our events as involved in the liturgy. Travel costs for speakers and any others that you will employ could be part of this if they're not just virtually online. Hospitality beyond what's included in the venue cost. Do you have a caterer, an outside caterer you'll have to consider and add in? Any swag, if you provide book bags, folders, name tags, and with or without lanyards, pens, or other personal use items, all goodies that we've come to expect from a good ECW event. Printing costs for handouts. Now, you may be able to get your parish to support that. I basically make my parish pay for the cost of our annual meeting booklets if we have in-person events, and they're happy to do that as their support for ECW's ministry. But if you have to pay, then consider that as something to consider. If you're going to use Eventbrite or one of the other ticket management tools for ticket sales, consider that their fee is approximately 3% of the ticket price. They'll let you manage tickets for free if your event is free, but if you're charging, they will charge a piece of that. How much will you charge each participant? Again, this may be one of the latter things that you figure out based on what you estimate your costs to be and how many people you expect will be paying that could share the cost. Will you provide scholarships to some participants? Probably the best way to handle all of these assumptions is to build a spreadsheet of some sort. So that's helpful to do, whether it's Google Sheets or Excel, whatever you are comfortable in using, but keep track of your assumptions in some form or fashion. This is an example of an event that we did in one of our ECW-Diocesan events. So we had our registration income defined by who was going to be there and what we were going to charge them. If they were online, we didn't charge them, and if we had guests and workers, we figured them in as the total participants, as you can see. So we could extend the cost for what kind of revenue we could expect. Then the expenses detail were the people we had to pay, and then the other expenses that we had, so that we could estimate what the costs would be. So this is just an example of the use of a spreadsheet. And then the net income would give us an idea of what ECW Chicago would have to bear in terms of subsidy for the event. Are there any questions so far on any of this? Okay, moving on. Philanthropy. If your organization does have philanthropic ministry as part of their objective, are you going to be holding a fundraiser, in which case you would plan that fundraiser as any event, but obviously with different income expectations. If your ECW has an endowment and you give away income, you could have your outreach committee develop a list of proposed beneficiaries and how much you will give to them. Again, with any of these budgeting exercises, try to make sure that you can get the input of as many of the participants in your ECW ministry as are willing to participate. It should never be a one-person exercise. If you have a grant program, how much will be made available for grants? And then you would have to set your grant policy and publicize it so people could know how to apply and what they could expect to receive in the way of funding if their grant is approved. This is an example of the ECW Chicago's annual giving and the kind of events we support, campus ministries as much as are up and around, as well as various aspects of the bishop's discretionary fund. We have an archivist who keeps track of all of our documents, along with documents for the diocese. Episcopal Charities is a Chicago organization which does fundraising and support for parish ministries. And then you can sort of see the other things that we're involved with. We have a chaplain to clergy spouses, whom we provide some funding for to take care of her out-of-pocket expenses. So it gives you an idea of the kinds of things that we can do. We are blessed because over the 140 some years that Chicago has been an organization, the women have donated quite a lot of money, and we have a pretty nice little endowment that generates a fair amount of income. So we not only fund ourselves, but we also can fund these gifts, which we're very proud of. So bringing it all together, I'm going to show some examples of ECW financial statements, ECW Chicago's financial statements, which are shared so that you can see how it looks when all the pieces are compiled into one organizational budget. As I said, we use QuickBooks Online, which produces these reports, but you can get something very similar from any accounting tool. So our revenues, just and mostly focus on the titles at the left, the sources of revenue in this case, and then the board allowances and expenditures. So we provide for the possibility for any of our officers or board members to submit expense reports if they're traveling for ECW business. We also provide some subsidies for our church periodical club representative and our diocesan coordinator for their expenses if they have to order supplies or have travel expenses. This happened to have been the expenses from the year that we went to the Triennial, so we had our expenses related to traveling to Louisville. And then, as I spoke about earlier, the administrative costs that we have. We have an accounting consultant who essentially does our audits for us. We have other office expenses that happen to be the QuickBooks Online in the main. We're doing very little actual mailing, U.S. mail. We rely mostly on MailChimp for communications. And we do have a website that has a small expense, and we cover for the Province 5 as well as ECW Chicago.
Jane, I have a question. This is Lisa.
Yes, ma'am.
So under you have the actual, the budget, and then over budget. So when an organization creates a budget and then they have expenses that exceed the budget, should they at the next board meeting adjust the budget, or just leave the budget alone and show that you've overspent? Does that make sense?
It does. I would recommend that you just leave the budget alone and make note that you overspent. Definitely, if somebody expects to run over budget on their line item, they need to bring it to their board and to make sure the board is approving of that excessive expenditure. So that would be definitely part of making sure that all of the responsible people are involved in the process. But shifting the budget probably isn't worthwhile, I'm guessing.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
Otherwise, you have a constantly shifting goalposts. And I'd say, one of the things to take note of in the successive years that you're building the budget is, if you went over, is this likely to be repeated? And would you need to adjust next year's budget, comprehend that?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. We kind of roll up our event expenditures, whatever they may be, all together in one place. And so this gives us some idea of the categories of expenses that we had, what we budgeted for, and then what we actually spent. And then we get down to our final bottom line is what did we have? And in this case, the negative number of over budget basically means we underspent. How we managed to do that? No, we overspent. But I think most of that was because we did not have a budget for, we did not put a budget in for our annual giving. So that's really what fell through. But that's what a report from QuickBooks Online would look like if you were to use that particular accounting tool. So the conclusions on this are that you need to plan your income and expenses by activity. It would be helpful to compare your actual results to your plans, to your budget, as we just discussed. And it's most important that you keep good records of income and especially expenses. This is where having some sort of a budgeting tool or at least a spreadsheet that captures a lot of detail would be a good idea so that your auditor can have something to work with. Whether you capture the final approved plan in your accounting system on an electronic spreadsheet or on paper is up to you, but you'll want to compare your actual financial activity to this event to this budget by event or activity category to make sure you can do that. So make sure that you can do that easily. The matter of who manages finances is important for both income and expense management. If your parish or diocesan treasurer manages your group finances, you need to be timely about submitting receipts as well as requests for expenditures to them. And they probably have protocols that you should follow for handling and appropriately documenting both receipts and requests for expenditures. One thing that we all have to consider is the Manual for Business Methods and Practices, which is available on the Episcopal Church.org website. Or from your diocesan treasurer as a guide. It's kind of into the weeds as an accounting-ese, but it gives you an idea of what you need to consider if you're forming this role as financial person for your organization. And again, your parish or diocesan treasurer would probably be a great guide and help for that. Involve them if possible in the development of your annual and events budgets, or at least provide the final details so that they are aware of expected cash receipts and expenditures. They can be very helpful in advising about or even providing tools to use for communication, ticket sales management, and once they have your completed budget, will be able to provide periodic comparative financial reports, both during events and through the course of the year for your board meetings. For those who manage their own finances, there are other considerations for safeguarding your group finances, which are not covered here, but for which your diocesan treasurer can provide advice, like banking, financial reporting, and annual audits. You should have policies and procedures documented as governing documents for assigning duties and responsibilities. These could be separate from your bylaws document. Think of bylaws as defining the group's purpose and organization, and a separate policies and procedures document as defining the how do we do that practices in detail. Questions? Awfully quiet out there.
I'm going to ask a question. This is Phyllis Gray. It looks like I'm the only church here.
Okay.
Our problem is that we have very generous women. So although we can establish a budget, what I get back as the president is that's all right, I'll take care of it. So what that leaves us then with is an artificial budget. And from year to year, what you end up having is an overage of money, but that doesn't take into account what really an activity or an event really costs. And I have done everything other than go down on bended knee with the women at my church saying, please, even if you are going to incur the cost for an event or an activity or purchase something, please submit the receipts so that we can at least give you an in-kind statement that you have purchased something, and we can at least put that down as the event actually cost X. So I don't know what I can do to work around that, because what I end up having really is a false budget. I really don't have a way to say this event really costs X, because I seldom get people turning in receipts short of food. I hope you understood what I was saying. So
I totally understand, because I'm guilty as charged.
Okay, you're one of those that I'd be wanting to shoot. Okay.
Yes, ma'am, I think I would be. We have talked about that in our diocesan board too. Most of our expenses are captured in our finances and are captured in our document procedures. Let me go back to my little budget. Okay. So in this, this is an event. And so we knew what we had to pay other people, and we knew, the food for Suzette's. But frequently swag items especially are things which would be kind of kept off books, which I know is what's driving you crazy. I've tried to be better about making sure that if things are bought for ECW events, like book bags or pens, branded pens, that the group pays for it, the diocesan group pays for it, so that we have it in our records. Probably let's see, what else have we got? Probably the only thing that's missing here in our expenses is the Zoom account, which is my personal account that we use for our meetings and our events. And it's, in the scope of these dollars, fairly de minimis, and anymore most everybody has a Zoom account. But you're absolutely right. It would be helpful to have it here because it is an expense that could be borne by the diocesan board as part of their expenses of doing business. But it's,
It
I
makes
don't know
it
what
very
to tell you.
difficult to plan for, when you turn this over to the next leader for the
Right.
diocesan or for your local ECW, it makes it very difficult for that person to really have a grasp of what is this event really going to cost me.
Yeah, we have a
That's,
little bit of that going on in our parish too, so I know what
yeah.
you're talking about.
The other thing we have not since we are a ministry of the church, a lot of the stuff that you talked about, the bookkeeper does our books. That's no cost to us. We use the church's Zoom. That's no cost to us. So we use the church's copier for a lot of stuff. No cost to us. But we have recently begun doing outreach. Well, we're going to have to look for grants, because we're not going to be able to bear the cost of some of the outreach that we have been doing. Are you going to get to grants in a bit?
Wasn't going to cover, but we can certainly talk about it. I don't have any examples here, but we can certainly talk about it. So you're going to be applying for grants from another organization to.
We're going to have to look, because one of that, we are actually feeding homeless women through another organization who, I won't go into how they lost funding, but we jumped in trying to help by feeding, helping to feed them, and it's going to cost us. And if we continue to do that, it's going to take all of our money. So,
Well, yeah, and I think even your generous women are going to draw the line someplace at how much they're willing to underwrite that. So, yeah, and then yes, you're left with the issue of how do you explain to the granting organization what your history might be. I'd say in that case, you'd probably just say, we are initiating this, and explain that the previous source of revenue that had funded the ministry has gone away, so that you don't really have the history. But you would be able to estimate the costs, I would think, based on their experience of what their feeding ministry had been costing on a monthly or annual basis.
Right? Well, quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. And
And
yes,
we're talking about feeding 3 times a day, so quite a bit.
oof, yeah, that is a lot.
And these are homeless women, and we're talking about at least 100 per meal.
Wow.
But
And then, yeah, then the problem with grants is that that might get you going for a year, but most granting organizations will only carry you for the 1 year. I know UTO isn't going to repeat year after year, so you really need to come up with not just a grant for this year, but a sponsor who will carry the costs, whether it's one of your local grocery chains or I'm not sure what. You're going to need more than just a grant to carry that ministry.
We're getting ready to put a funding team together to look for grants.
Yeah,
But given
yeah.
the climate right now, I don't know.
Well, yeah, everybody appreciates the need, but everybody's also feeling the pinch, so that's going to be an issue. Wow.
Phyllis, this is Lisa Bortner. The National ECW does have 2 different grant programs. They are on our website under resources.
Okay.
We accept grants beginning on June 1st, so we're not going to be looking at even opening up the grant applications until June 1st of 2026. But do keep us in mind at that time, and we post it on Facebook when the granting applications are open.
Okay, will do.
You might also want to check with your local food bank and see if maybe they could provide some assistance.
We'll check with them, but they've been hit by federal cuts too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know whether your diocese has any kind of a feeding ministry or not, but that might be at least to give you some guidance as to know where to look for money for that. But yeah, that's a huge lift.
Yeah, we're gonna begin having discussions with other ECWs in the Triangle area, but you know, ECWs are going away in many churches, and so we will work on it. But thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Good question.
even if ECW is going away in many churches, you will still put the request because they are women of the church, and perhaps there is someone sitting in that audience who has something that they want to donate, even if they don't have an organized ECW. Because we always say every woman in the pew is an ECW member.
We're gonna work on it because this is a need.
Yes.
Mhm.
When you go by this place at 6 o'clock in the morning, and women are already standing out waiting to get in.
Right.
Wow. How long has this feeding ministry been going on?
This is the only program in the capital city of Raleigh, North Carolina that is services single homeless women, and they have been going on for some time.
Wow.
And the funds are being cut left and right, and you can see it by how desperate they are in requesting help. So that's why we jumped in.
Yeah,
And
no, it's brilliant that you did that, but wow.
We have some questions in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have someone say, can you detail how groups can handle line items that go over budget? If you know in June that a particular line item is going to be over budget, what should be done if you are not amending the budget?
Well, you definitely need to have it in your board minutes that the board deliberated on the need and proved the overrun. And then, as I say, for the next year, just amend how you budget that line item. But you can't just overspend by a significant funding without letting your board know, whether it's parish board or diocesan board. Whoever you're funding, whoever's responsible for your funding is going to need to know that you're going to need more money. And if you're going to be hard-nosed about it, the usual rule in finance is that if you're going to overrun on one line, you better underspend on another so that you can offset it. Because the top line isn't necessarily what's going to change.
And we have a
Does that
question.
make
Would you share your slides, or can you tell me where to find a similar guide?
Share my slides, a similar guide for what? For budget over or under budgeting?
Your slides from today, if
Yeah.
you could share them.
Today.
Okay, sure. So the year-end giving was kind of a case in point that we didn't put it in our operating budget, our administrative budget, but we had approved it based on the list that I showed previously. Actually, the 2 years don't exactly match up. This was from 24, and I think the previous one had been from 23. But we approve as a board our annual giving, and we approve our operating budget, which is primarily administrative and event budgets. So, as I say, just make sure that you have had the discussion with your responsible organization and that they are aware of the need to overrun. And if there's a need to offset that someplace, where are you taking the money from? So for instance, if we had, instead of welcoming committee being $100 for the actual versus a budget of $150, if it was $600, we would say, okay, well, where are you going to get the money from? Well, contributions to Province 5 might have been an option that we would move, and we'd have that documented in our minutes. And our treasurer would know that that's where she would draw the money from, or that's where she would look for the offset to the overspend. Does that make sense, or am I talking accounting ease?
No, that makes sense.
Okay.
One of the questions I often get is if a ECW or the women's ministry has their own checking account or savings account, can the church take it over? And in general, the answer is yes, they can. They can, as part of the church, the vestry is the governing body of the church, and they can require that all the organizations under the vestry, which would be any organization within the church, have their accounting within the church. Usually it's taken in as a line item, so that the ECW would still have its own account under the line item. But basically, yes, the vestry or the pastor can request that ECW funds be included in the general church budget. Is that what you would say also, Jane?
Yeah, especially on a parish level. They're not separate organizations. They used to have, at my parish, they used to have their own checking account and run their own books. But that's kind of so long ago that I was a wee thing when they were operating, so I can't tell you exactly how they managed it. I know that when they folded the chapter, probably 40 years ago, they just handed the money over to the vestry to roll into the church accounts. So now it happens that the ECW Chicago organization is separately incorporated in the state of Illinois. So while I suppose the bishop could grab our endowment, it might be a tad bit more difficult. It's an interesting thing because, of course, we don't want to be so separate that we don't come under the heading of church ministry and have to start doing separate reporting to the IRS. But neither do we particularly want the bishop to grab our endowment, which is several $100,000, as you can imagine, from the income it generates. So it's an interesting question.
Yeah. It's also important that in your bylaws that you state that if your organization is to be dissolved, how the monies would be dispersed.
Yeah, and we do have a line item in our bylaws that say that should that happen, we would work in consultation with the bishop for where the money would go, who would take ownership of the endowment.
Right.
Our board has some ideas about what they'd like to do, but we haven't executed on that, had to do that yet, so.
But yeah, I'm for the rest of the people here, I'm just saying it's important to look at your bylaws and make sure that you have something in the bylaws that will say exactly, you know, should this diocese and ECW be dissolved, where will those monies go?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Any other questions? Comments?
Has it been helpful?
I found it extremely helpful, especially to look at your actual budget sheets. So thank you for including that. And to have examples, real, you know, gives you a real life, you know, something to go off of. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see we did actually budget for the Zoom subscription, but because I carry that back to Phyllis's comment, we never actually expended the money. I didn't put in for it, so. But yes, Phyllis, your point, having everything in the budget that you're going to require for operating the organization is important, however it's funded. Anything else? Well, this and all the questions will be part of the recording that's captured and preserved on the National ECW website, so we can have anybody revisit this that needs to review any portion of this presentation or the discussions that followed.
Linda, did you want to talk on the in-kind donation mentioned in the budget? Linda Lord from Long Island.
Hi, how are you? Good afternoon. Good
Hi.
morning. Yes,
Jane, you want to stop sharing so we can see each other's face?
Sounds good to me. I'll just stop sharing.
Okay, Linda.
okay, let me turn on and see my face too. I'm sorry. Hi, good morning, everyone. Yes, I am really blessed by this because it is I have been my parish treasurer at my last church. I spent 20 years over there. I'm from Brooklyn. And I did it exactly how you think, because I followed all the documents as the church manual of business says. As we all remember, I mean, I was a very young kid in this church when I became part of the vestry. And that was around the Ellen Cook time. So we had to pull up all our boots and do everything right so that we know. And I think this was really something that is correct to the point. It's quite, to me, you got it very simple that ordinary parish ECWs could also take care of their own finances and stuff like that. So the in-kind thing, why I like that is because sometimes people think, oh, well, I'm going to bring the plates, and it's not part of the budget. Yes, you're given the plates, but the cost of the plates is still part of the event. And when you want to put a price to an event where you know what you want to get of it, stuff like that gives you a total pricing of the event and not pulling figures out of your head. I'm from a Caribbean background, and you know my Caribbean people. Oh, I can't pay more than $50, so I want it for $45. And in reality, the event costs $75. And when you bring it, when you bring the final accounting, and you say, well, this is what we meant. We had 10,000 people in here. Yeah, but y'all charge the cost for 10,000 people at what 5 people should pay. So we can't make a thing. So I really commend this, and I'm glad that you said you will share it on the national website so that other people could see. And if they don't understand, I guess they could send questions into that and somebody would be able to answer. But I'm very, very glad to see there's somebody else out there who is just as stringent as I am.
Thank you.
There was one thing you talk about an accounting. Well, I'm the secretary to my parish's ECW, and I'm also the parish assistant treasurer. And our accounting is in the church's accounting, as you said. We don't have a separate account.
Right.
And as the assistant treasurer, we have list of accounts that we give every month is presented to the vestry, right? And so a majority of people on our vestry have close relationships with different ministries in our church. And so we all know how much money each ministry have, and the ministry also knows. So we try to get real good understanding and a real transparency. Well, transparency.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, good guidance in the way we do our accounting. So I really like it.
Yeah, no, good.
Oh, and you talk about the accounting system wave. I am a sort of an expert at QuickBooks, but my parish, every time I try to push them to go there, they're telling me, oh, QuickBooks is a lot of money, Linda. And I think they use
Oh,
something.
TechSoup. You're talking about TechSoup.
Right. My church use, I know I can't remember, but it seems
We use
most
what's
churches
called
use
Church
it.
Windows. Yeah,
Huh?
we use what's called Church Windows, which is is from a company called Computer Helper in Akron, Ohio, and it's made for churches.
Right.
So I do, my donations. I manage my membership rolls, my donations, my general accounting, and my payroll totally through Church Windows for my parish. And it's much easier. It's a much more intuitive fit for the way that we do accounting.
That's nice.
But if you're kind of stuck with QuickBooks, then QuickBooks Online, then I'd say definitely look at TechSoup and see if you can get yourselves qualified to order it from them. Because instead of paying over $1,000 a year or $1,100 a year, it's going to be more like $85.
Okay, that's cool.
Now, is Church Windows something you just download and start using
Yeah.
without cost?
No, you have to. We have to pay for it. So we pay about $110 a month for their web hosting and for use of the software. So it's comparable to QuickBooks Online in terms of cost. But I don't think TechSoup handles that. They just handle the big softwares that can be donated.
Okay. Are there any other questions, concerns, comments? If not, Jan, any other last word for the good of the order?
Be brave, be good, well documented, keep good records.
Yeah, have
And
money.
Jane, could I have your email address? I have a question I would like to ask you offline.
Yeah, you could send something to president@ecwchicago.org and it'll get to my personal email address.
ECW-Chicago.org. Gotcha. Love you, Bishop.
She's wonderful. She's a
Yeah,
sweetheart.
she is.
If
And
this
for
is,
any daughters of the king, she's a daughter and she wears her fleury cross, not any big bishop pectoral cross. So I love that about her.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
this has been helpful, and I will spend the rest of the afternoon trying to sift through what my accountant sent me,
Okay.
which I
thank
don't
you.
agree with, but
Is there anything I can help with? Any other
well,
words?
again, it amounts to this whole issue of two separate accounts which are in the we are in a separate part of the church's budget, if you will. So
Right.
our money rolls over from year to year, unlike the church's money, which goes dark at the end of December. Church budget goes dark. You start a new year. Our money, since we are a separate account in the church budget, but we are not part of the church budget, if that makes sense.
It does, and I know
the church doesn't give us any money.
yeah, you fund yourselves.
We fund ourselves. And so,
Well,
it's
one of
more or
yeah, you
less,
should have your own fund, I would think, within the
we
church
have our own
books.
fund. Yeah, we have our
Right.
own fund. But oftentimes what will happen is that people make the mistake of, oh, this really meant, I meant to give it to ECW, but I sent it to. So therefore, then I have to go back and try to have negotiations with the accountant, and the person has to send me an email or something that says I sent a check on, or we use ACS, which is, we won't even
Yeah.
talk about that. I sent an amount on ACS and I forgot to put it in the memo line, but it really was for ECW. So this happens every month. Of trying to, weed out all of the weeds so that
Yeah.
what was meant to come to us actually comes to us. And I know our church accountant gets tired of me saying, please send me a detailed report every month.
This is a little trick we use in our parish finances. The numbers never match up at the end of the year where you have exactly all the revenue and exactly all the expenses
Right.
equaling. So of course you're going to zero out the operating fund at the end of the year. But we always had a bucket which we called contingency fund, where we would put whatever the overage or underage was, and that sat in its own little, it was its own little fund, and I would transfer the money there. And it sounds like, you guys, if you want to keep kind of a little bank account within the church, just need to have a bucket that's kind of retained earnings sort of bucket related to your prior activities, so that you know that you've got a little money still in the till from past activities, especially if you have particularly generous or particularly good year from an event of some kind. You want to hang on to that money to fund other activities going forward. And church has still got the cash, so it's not a question of that. You're not inventing money. It's just a matter of, can you keep track of where it's supposed to be
Where it's
kept?
supposed to be.
Who's responsible? Who's supposed to be responsible for it? And
reminding people again and again and again, please, if it's coming to ECW, please, on the memo line somewhere,
right,
sure that you earmark it, or else it will go into the church bucket.
Right.
Yeah, it's just open offerings to them if they don't know otherwise. So
right, it's not the church's fault, if that happens.
And Phyllis,
Absolutely.
we had that problem when we started online giving in our
That's
church.
part of the issue, because ECW does not appear on our online giving form. You have to put under the beside memo, you have to put ECW.
Right.
So often people will forget. That, oh, I really meant to send it. And then when I get the report monthly and tell the church, okay, you need to send out thank you notes to these people who have sent money this month. And somebody else said, but I didn't get a thank you and I gave. So
yeah, that happened. That's the problem. Yes.
Yes.
Well, I know that one of the things that I'm I'm going to toot the horn of church windows again, is that if a parishioner gives money for whatever, whether it's flowers or general operating funds or whatever, we can capture that in their giving statement, and then their giving statement, which they get a couple times a year just to check and make sure it's accurate, and then for the final giving at the, early in the following year so that they've got it for their tax records, it's all captured there as to what fund it went into. And it seems like if you guys have some similar mechanism for tracking the giving from everybody in your parish through the year, that ECW should be one of the accounts that they're tracking to.
Yeah, but you gotta write, if a person forgets to put it, I'm primarily about the electronic givers. If they
Yeah, no,
forget
I mean
to write
that needs to be corrected.
Yeah, it has to be corrected.
Yeah, we've got that. We got Venmo, we got Zelle, we got you name it.
I
That
understand.
comes into our parish. It seems most of the money comes in through something other than a check and an envelope in the plate every week. So I've got all kinds of different ways of keeping track of stuff. And a lot of different ways to I have to keep track of. But it all goes on their giving statement, however they got it to me, and however whatever they designated it for, it's all showing up there. So but yes, they need to specify in the memo line whether it's Zelle, Venmo, or a check that it's for ECW.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad to know we're not the only ones.
No, ma'am, you're not.
That's why we had this workshop.
We feel your pain.
Yeah. Okay, if not anymore, I appreciate, and we really appreciate the National Board, appreciate all of you coming on this morning. And we should look forward to in the future another virtual series, and hope you'll be present for that one.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.